Order the regular meeting of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. It's 9 o'clock. Madam Clerk, if you take roll, please.
Supervisor Klein is absent due to prior arrangement. Supervisor Mulhern?
Here.
Supervisor Hashak?
Here.
Supervisor Norvell?
Here.
Supervisor Williams?
Here.
Okay, and just as a note, Supervisor Klein is at the NACO Legislative Conference. Today she has meetings with Congressman Huffman and Senators Padilla and Schiff. So if you'd stand and join us for the pledge. Okay, we're going to move to public expression. Anybody in the room like to speak on anything not on today's agenda? Nobody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no one online.
Okay. Moving on to the consent calendar. Clerk, has proper notice been established?
Proper notice has been established and all correspondence, if any, received has been sent to your email.
Okay. And items C28 and C30 have been withdrawn at the request of the departments. Is there anything on consent the board would like to have pulled? I'm not seeing any. We will have public comment on the consent calendar. None in the room.
Seeing no comment online.
All right. We'll accept a motion to approve the consent. Supervisor Williams?
Move approval.
Second. Okay. First by Supervisor Williams, seconded by Hashcheck. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, it brings us to the regular calendar. Agenda item R1, discussion and possible action including acceptance of informational reports from the assessor, clerk, recorder, registrar of voters, auditor, controller, tax collector, district attorney, sheriff, and various county department heads or designees. Seeing anything in the room?
Through the chair, if I may, we do have Melissa Hannum online.
Please, thank you.
Good morning. In 2021, a needs assessment was completed for the Ukiah Library, focusing on 10-year project needs. It estimated costs ranging from $25.8 million to $38 million. The assessment also specified next steps, which included potential partner and location feasibility study, real estate new site and adjacent site purchase feasibility study, second level additional structural feasibility and cost study, a SEED certified community outreach, architectural programming, design, and construction. In 2024, the board approved spending $100,000 for a feasibility study related to expanding the Ukiah Library branch. In April 2025, library staff provided the Board of Supervisors with an update and requested direction. Using possibilities taken from the 2021 needs assessment, options discussed included adding a second floor to the current branch, replacing the current branch with a new 2-story library, and building a new library branch with parking at a new location. The board gave the library direction on next steps. The library was directed to work with the executive office to identify available funding sources and to explore potential financing options. The library was tasked with reporting back to the board with an update prior to proceeding with a feasibility study. Library staff had been approached about relocating the Ukiah branch into a new multi-use building to be constructed near the new courthouse. It appears ownership of this building would be split between an affordable housing developer and Mendocino Transit Authority. As presented, this move would have the library become a long-term paying tenant of space potentially built to suit. Measure O funds are used to operate and approve all library branches. At this time, there is no funding to proceed with feasibility studies for the Ukiah branch, no funding to pay for an expansion, and no funding to begin paying rent for a space when the Ukiah branch has space currently allocated. The library believes it is appropriate to table feasibility studies related to expansion of the Ukiah branch until more funds are available, or there is more pressing need to expand the location. I also wanted to give you an update on the Ukiah branch work. Originally, the Ukiah branch was scheduled to be closed to the public this week while the front doors and windows were replaced. Unfortunately, glass for the doors and windows have been damaged when it was received, so we're waiting on new dates for installation from vendor and facilities. I also wanted to update you on the Ukiah branch roof. The current year budget included a design budget to develop roof replacement plans, and facilities has provided fiscal year 26-27 facility modifications or improvements form that outlines a comprehensive roof and HVAC replacement. So there are some things in the works for the Ukiah branch. Are there any questions?
Supervisor Moore?
Thank you. I don't have questions. I have a statement. I have been attending these initial meetings about a potential development, and the department decided to stop moving forward with those conversations without my prior knowledge and without the knowledge of the Library Advisory Board. They have, and the Ukiah Friends of the Library, who actually have funded the some of the work that's being done to talk about a feasibility study. So there are additional meetings coming up March 11th, and I was working on an agenda item to bring forward to the board for the board to have a conversation about possible next steps. So I would just like to, for the board's awareness and for the public record, state that I'm still working with the Ukiah Friends of the Library. All of our library branches are incredibly important for more than just books. They provide a lot of community, and the Ukiah branch in particular serves roughly 30 to 45,000 people in the surrounding area. And I think it's a bigger conversation than to halt the conversation without more community input.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, we also have Shamice Cubison online.
Thank you.
Good morning, Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison. Just wanted to let you know that we have completed the annual audit with the outside auditors and issued the financial statements on the single audit. And those will be coming forward on your March 24th board meeting for presentation. That's my update for miscellaneous items. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other department heads?
Seeing none online.
Okay. Public comment on this item, R1? None in the room?
Seeing none online.
Okay, back to the board. For either discussion or accept a motion to accept the informational reports. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, let's see. Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. And I thought that when we had the discussion about the state audit, that some of the department heads that had to do some action plans were going to come back at this time. And I don't know if it was this agenda item or that's the only opportunity I see, but I thought we were going to get a written report about the action plan and how to get things into compliance.
I'm going to look to the executive office.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, acting or assistant CEO. February 16th, I believe, was the date that it was reported back to the state, the findings. So each office, the assessor, clerk, recorder, had specific guidelines to submit responses to the state portal, as well as the auditor, controller, treasurer, tax collector, and the executive office. I'll defer to the elected offices for their submittal, but the executive office did submit our comments based on what was presented to the board previously.
Okay, thank you for that. I just thought that the other department heads were supposed to come back with their action plans to the board.
See, we have Ms. Cubison.
Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamise Cubison, I did provide my responses to the state. I understand that the board may be wishing to have additional information, but there was no requirement to provide an action plan to the state at this point in time. It was only to give them an update as to the progress made in the initial 60 days. So several of those deadlines are not happening in the near future. They are happening at 6 months and further out. So most of my information is not much different than what was already presented in the CEO's report. So at this point in time, I'm not issuing a formal response to the state, request for recommendations. We provided the information as the state requested through their portal with the updates. It is not a full report required at 60 days.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just thought that the agreement we had at the last meeting 3 weeks ago was that written plans would be coming back to make sure that we were on track to come into compliance.
Yeah, I do remember the conversation, and I thought we had laid out a plan for the department heads to come back and at least give us their timelines. Supervisor Williams?
Yeah, that was my recollection as well, and it's because it needs to be a collaboration. We don't want to find that the board didn't allocate adequate resources or funding to carry out a plan, and so I think we wanted an action plan to see whether we're providing everything that's necessary to get the work done in the amount of time that's been suggested to the state.
Okay. Thing that we can look into for perhaps the next meeting, Supervisor?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know what is our action plan in regards to this? Do we bring it back as an agenda item? Do we ask again for this, written action plan? Or what's the chair think?
Okay, well, I'm happy to discuss this with the CEO after the meeting. You're comfortable with that?
Yeah, and then how will the board know what the path forward is?
We'll either announce it at the next meeting or bring you back what you're asking for. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyone else? No? All right. Again, we're looking for a motion for acceptance of the informational reports. Supervisor Williams?
I don't know that we need a motion. I'll give you
No?
one.
Okay, sure. Please.
Move approval of the reports.
I'll second. Vote by the button. Thank you. All
The
right.
motion carries unanimously.
Item number R2, discussion and possible action, including resolution adopting the title change and salary revision from Director of Informational Services, Chief Information Officer, $137,633.60 to $167,315.20 annually to the Director of Information Services, $145,849.60 to $177,299.20 annually, and amending the position allocation table as follows. Budget Unit 1960, Information Services, add 1 FTE, Director of Information Services, $145,849.60. Annually, delete 1 FTE Business System Analyst, position number 4514, $79,726.40 to $96,907.20 annually. And I believe this is Human Resources. Ms. Johnson.
Yes, good morning, Chair, members of the board. Sherry Johnson, Human Resource Director. So I just wanted to state, also you may be wondering why we're reading this item in the regular session instead of on consent as we usually put the rest of them. But the reason for the regular item is pursuant to Government Code 54953, Section D and Section 3, that the county shall orally report a summary of recommendation for final action on the salaries and salary schedules for department heads. So that's what the Director of Information Services is as a department head, so we are bringing it forward in regular session. And what we're asking for today is to add Director of Information Services and set salary and delete the Business Systems Analyst position. With this ask, it is also creating a department with a dedicated department head and separating the department from the executive office. And if you have any questions for me, I'm available, and CEO Antle is also available.
I'm not seeing any. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I see that the dollar amounts are the same, and you're deleting a business services or systems analyst. So there will be savings on this.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. We'll go to the public for comment. Ms. Johnson, did you have any more?
No, thank you.
All right. Anybody in the room like to speak on this item? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comment online.
Okay, back to the board. Supervisor Williams?
I see this as part of the initiative to modernize. This is a key position for bringing us into the current century. Move approval.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. I'll second. And beyond the key of modernizing, we have quite a bit of work to improve the systems that we already have. And I think that we have very talented people in our IT department, and having some more support for them would help us be able to get to our finish line faster.
Agree with both of you. Okay, we've got a first by Williams, seconded by Mulhern. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, moving on to agenda item R3. Discussion and possible action, including approval or denial of request from department heads and elected officials regarding budget impacts, funding and recruitment of vacant or new positions following the strategic hiring process. Ms. Johnson.
Good morning, Sherry Johnson, Human Resource Director. So yes, we have 5 requests, and the reports have been attached to this item for prior review for the board. And we'll go ahead and just get started. So we have the Executive Office with Facilities, and Jeff Detterman is here to speak.
Thank you.
Board members, good morning. My name is Jeff Detterman. I'm the Fleet and Facilities Maintenance Superintendent. Today I'm here to, on behalf of Facilities and Fleet, to request your approval to commence the recruitment for one of our 7 building maintenance mechanic positions. This position was recently vacated on February 13th, 2026. Staff member moved on to a new job at Lake County. So we'd like to go out for recruitment and fill that position so we can continue having the support for the rest of the county.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I'm not seeing any questions from the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We also have County Council, so we have interim County Council, Elliott.
Thank you very much. So at our last meeting, I agreed to vacate one of the positions that we had available. And as I am temporary and interim, I'm trying to look at fixes for problems that I see without making too much change. So I wanted to keep that extra position open till we can totally evaluate the office. And as you know, Charles McKee has been hired by the board to do that sort of overall evaluation. In the meantime, I have contacted a prior Family and Children Services attorney who could come on part-time as a retired annuitant. That would be high cost savings. We definitely have that money in our budget. Those are things I have spoken with Department Head Parker related to this thought, and she is in agreement. So that would be for appeals, for covering for persons that are on vacation, and also to be able to keep one of our deputies going over to work directly with the social workers. So I think it's a good solution. He would be probably no more than 20 hours a week averaged out, but during appeals it would get higher and then it would drop down.
Okay, Supervisor Williams.
Are there more to discuss, or can I talk about it holistically?
I think let's get through all of them, and then we'll have a discussion, if you're comfortable with that.
So she, Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Shamice Cubison is online.
Good morning again. Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison. I've requested to fill, or actually recruit, for 2 revenue recovery specialist positions that you just approved on the consent calendar to assist with collection activities and to provide support to other higher level positions that are working on more complicated collection activities. This will also assist us in evaluating cases to send out to the new American Financial Credit Services contract that you just approved on consent. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Cubison? Not seeing any. Thank you.
We have Social Services Director, Dee Dee Parker.
Good morning, Board. Dee Dee Parker, Director of Social Services. And so we submitted our memo, and today I respectfully request, upon approval of the mid-year budget, authorizing 310 budgeted positions that the Department of Social Services be authorized to hire all budgeted positions without utilizing the strategic hiring process or separate board approval, provided positions are fully budgeted. There is no county general fund being utilized, and the required funding ratios are maintained.
One question. Could you, I think I understand what you're trying to accomplish here. I know that by the time you get approval for a position versus hiring that position, there can be a lot lost. You know, interviewing somebody, making the decision to hire them, and so much time has gone by that that person perhaps moved on. Is that something that you're trying to get past?
That's one of the hurdles we're trying to get past. The other big hurdle has been the hiring freeze, the budgeting of the different positions. We have really focused on our ratios, which is bringing in different revenue and bringing in more revenue, and how we're pulling down that revenue. The biggest issue has really been that the biggest vacancy right now is in children's and our social workers. And that's really kind of based upon timing, but being one of the larger departments, it becomes very time consuming with less staff to continuously come in front of the board every time somebody resigns and positions move. Sometimes during recruitments, we have internal staff that are promoting, right? And so then we're not bringing on additional staff. Now we have another vacant position, and then we have to come back. And so there's been a lot of different issues that have kind of been created for the Department of Social Services because of the strategic hiring process and the freezes. So we're really trying to, we have a balanced budget. We're not using county general funds, except for the county positions, the county general fund positions. And so we're really trying to keep that flow to not, burn out our employees.
And you've done a lot of work with the executive office to get to this point of asking, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Of course. We've worked very closely with the CEO and Sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing any more questions.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Johnson, Human Resource Director. So we have one more presentation regarding the Executive Office and Information Services. So CEO Antle.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. I am respectfully asking to fill the IS department head position. As you know, IS has been a division of the Executive Office. A deputy CEO has been over the division, which leads to less attention on EO tasks. We also supported HR in this manner for many years, and you see how successfully HR has become by putting Miss Johnson, back over in that department. Not that she still doesn't help the executive office, but she is her main attention is to that office. With the recent state audit and the board priorities set in January to modernize and create efficiencies in our two main systems, financial and property tax. It will take a full-time leader to be successful in that department to lead those processes. The focus on those two systems is a huge lift that will take at least 2 years. In order for the county to be financially viable into the future, those two systems must be made a priority. And so we are asking for that position to be filled. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any questions from the board. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, so I'm not, without getting into the specific positions that are requested, can I pull up a visual aid, Chair?
Please.
I want to show you how I'm thinking about this. So this is how what I believe the staffing numbers are over the last decade. And the first 9 years or so are from MSARA. I think their numbers are credible. And then the most recent is from Executive Office and HR. I also think those are probably accurate, plus or minus a couple. So you might think that it looks like we're making progress. From 2025 to present, I'm estimating we're down about 85 positions. However, there's 69 in active recruitment before we get to the action we might take today. So that means from 2025 until present, we may have only reduced 16 positions in total. I think this is what it will look like if we fill those 69 positions. And if you think that we're approaching the average, here's the average line. Looks like we're getting close to it. And this is looking at 10 years. I think looking at 5 years is probably more appropriate. 5 years, we're about on average. So the reason we had the hiring freeze was we want to ensure we can pay market wages and that we can pay our bills. And it looked like we may be facing a deficit. And through natural attrition, we wouldn't have to have a layoff and we would be able to make ends meet. But I think even before any action we take today, we're already heading back to where we were. And so it raises a question for me, how is this going to play out? And I have a hunch that the reductions skew to non-general fund departments, meaning we're losing more positions, places like social services, less in general fund that would actually benefit our ability to pass a balanced budget. I also have a hunch that departments will continue to ask for more positions to meet mandates, and they're not wrong. I think that every position that's coming forward is appropriate. We do need to fill it. We're seeing a potential reduction in service because we don't have somebody to do the work. So for me, it's not a question of should we have these positions filled, it's more how do we pay for it? And so my working hypothesis is recent staffing restraint helps slow structural drift, yet recurring expenditures still exceed sustainable revenue growth, especially given looming obligations. So I'm curious what your thoughts are. If we keep piecemeal adding positions and filling positions and recruiting, and we get back to where we were, and then some, and that was our strategy to ensure a balanced budget, what's our game plan?
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I agree with those comments. And what is the game plan? And, you know, we started this strategic hiring process, but as we can see, you know, it's causing department heads to spend a lot of time justifying their existence to us, along with the CEO and the executive office. And so it doesn't seem very efficient on that level of all this time that we're spending, you know, trying to justify these positions, and for the most part, we're just approving them. Because I don't think we haven't approved one yet.
Yes, we have one. I know that.
One.
Yeah, one ask. It was at the DA's office, but I believe it was for 2 positions.
Okay. Anyway, I just question this whole process, because if you're trying to restructure a department, do you do it one position at a time, or do you have a holistic approach and look at it strategically?
I too agree with you, Supervisor Williams, but I think it was more than just getting our number of employees down. It was also the 6% and then no cost to, moving forward, no cost to the general fund were some of our criteria, not just getting the numbers down. Where do we end up? I don't know. I mean, I hope we get at least close to our goal. But I do understand your concerns, and I appreciate you putting the effort into it. Seeing no more comments, we'll go to the public. Anybody have a comment on this agenda item? No, Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay. Question for County Council. Do we need to address each one of these individually? Or if they're all looking to be approved, can we take them all at once?
I think if somebody can make a motion to take them all at once, and then you can determine if you need to handle them individually.
Thank you. Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. I'll make a motion to take them all at once and just comment. I agree with my colleagues here. I think that this exercise that we've been embarking on over the last 6 to 12 months has been an important one for us to really take a look at the positions and the process before we hire people. I think it's not well known in the public. The reduction of the reliance on the general fund by social services in particular, and I think that's an important conversation for the community to understand. And I don't want to stop this process moving forward because I do think it is an important piece of transparency. However, maybe we should focus less on the number of employees and whether or not the department can afford them, whether or not the general fund can afford them. You know, I think sometimes supervisors can get swayed by public opinion over certain things like a number. And I think in reality, we have to take a look at, is the county meeting its goals? Are we meeting our mandates and are providing services to the public? And where appropriate, reductions in departments like the 6% across the board is maybe the more appropriate measure to take than the number of employees. But we'll see as we move forward.
Second.
Okay. Supervisor Haschak.
No, I was just going to second.
Okay. So we have a first by Supervisor Mulhern and seconded by Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, on to item R4, discussion and possible action including acceptance of presentation of mid-year budget report on the status of county departmental spending and revenues for fiscal year 25-26, approval of executive office recommendation, adoption of resolution amending the fiscal year 25-26 adopted budget.
Good morning, Chair. If I may, Darcy Antle, CEO.
Thank you.
I would like to start that there's several attachments that have been requested by this board. One of those attachments is the cost plan table of allocated costs and also the HDL outlook for Q3, July through September of 25. It is slightly up 2.5% compared to prior, but note that is below what was budgeted. And we have taken a reduction in that area of approximately $200,000. Mid-year for fiscal year 25-26 reflects continued financial uncertainty as state and federal policies change, evolve, without clear implementation guidance. In the environment, the county must remain focused on austerity measures and process improvements that enhance efficiencies and uphold our responsibility as fiscal stewards to tax dollar payers. While short-term pressures are significant, the county's financial challenges are also deeply rooted. Mendocino County has operated under a structural deficit for many years. long-term sustainability, we require deliberate and disciplined reset of county finances. Achieving a balanced budget where one-time revenues are reserved exclusively for one-time expense will demand difficult but necessary decisions by this board. The impeding impacts of H.R. 1 further heighten these challenges with expected consequences for health and human services, as well as broader local economy. Counties across California are prepared for a period of constraint, revenue, heightened competition for limited state and federal funding. The board must focus on the priorities that is set in January workshop for the next several years. State audit lines out several recommendations that will require funds, time, and staff resources to set the county on a sustainable future to improve our systems and increase our revenue. Our state legislatures must take the lead and act to mitigate the H.R. 1 impacts, which continue to draw down county funds and cause significant economic issues in Mendocino County, as well as our public health. So again, at this point, I will turn it over to Tony Rakes.
Good morning, Chair Novell, members of the board, CEO Antle, County Council Elliott, Tony Rakes, Deputy CEO, here with your mid-year budget report for fiscal year 2025-26. So getting started right out of the gate here, we have a net position recap of our general fund as of mid-year. Now, this highlights the important takeaways from the mid-year report, and that is we have $2.8 million worth of additional non-departmental revenue as submitted by the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector in her mid-year adjustments. That revenue is expected to offset the departments not expecting to meet their 6% attrition savings and or come in over budget, and net to that $14,000 there listed below. That's $14,000. That's pretty darn close to being right on the budget target and netting to that $0 amount. Of course, the likelihood that we'll hit zero is pretty low, but $14,000 is pretty close. Of course, this is a mid-year projection, and this is a result of those additional revenues that are represented in property tax and other revenue lines. So wanted to highlight this one first and foremost because I think that that's a critical component in what we've been talking about and tracking with our attrition savings, where departments are coming in. Of course, there's further information in the report. This is just a summation of it, but wanted to get that out there first thing. Here we have we're bringing back, as we talked about in our first quarter budget report, we're bringing back the details of the fiscal year 24-25 closeout. Now I'll provide just a brief summary of this slide, and then I believe the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector is online to speak to this slide further and what these values truly represent. But that $12.164 million total that we've identified at the first quarter is made up of the amount specified on this slide. Importantly, we have balance sheet adjustments, about $1 million there with an asterisk. Those aren't available funds to use, but they're captured in that total fund balance at the end of the year, that closeout. And then we had about $2 million from our prior fiscal year 23-24 left over. And then we have it broken down between non-departmental revenue increases. We tried to look at what we anticipated to be ongoing revenues and what we anticipated to be volatile revenues that we didn't expect to get in the following fiscal year. So trying to create a reasonable approach to what revenues are ongoing and which ones aren't. And then we have some change in accounting revenue availability period there in about $2 million, and then a departmental activity savings of 2.4. That all comes to that total of the $12 million. And if the Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Shamice Cubison, is online, I'll pass the mic over to her to speak a little further on this.
Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector Shamice Cubison. I just want to point out a couple of items and then I'll answer questions if you have any at this time. So the balance sheet adjustments primarily relate to the fair value of investment that we are required to book at market value. Does not result in actual funds available. Those are for the investments in the Treasury pool that have various different maturity dates out in the future. But that is what that $1 million balance sheet adjustment has to do with. The non-departmental ongoing revenue is a result of property tax, $914,000 of increased property tax. The 3.68 is various other kind of one-time fluctuations that relates to interest largely. And I'd like to caution the board, we should never get too reliant on a particular budgeted amount for interest, because as we know, interest rates tend to fluctuate wildly. We've been very fortunate the last couple of years to have some very good yield on our investments. And so a good portion of that 3.6, actually $2 million of it is due to interest. But as interest rates goes down over time, we could very quickly return to a much less revenue from interest on the Treasury pool for the county general fund portion. Some of that revenue is also associated with cost plan reimbursements from internal service billings, and that also fluctuates based on the cost plan is prepared using the prior actuals from 2 years, and then it's trued up when the actual costs are available for the year that was approved for. So there's kind of a rolling, sometimes that can be good, sometimes that is not as good. So the cost plan number is not a consistent number to be relied on. County also did well, unexpectedly, I believe, in transient occupancy tax. So we're not quite sure whether that's based on just a higher room rate charges or whether occupancy was truly higher than anticipated, but there was still some good amount of revenue generated from the TOT. There is some money, $473,000 in cannabis tax. I think that we'd been conservative, I believe, on what the estimate was, still not completely sure how to accurately predict that. It's kind of an unknown number that fluctuates again wildly. So I just wanted to point those individual items out. There's also a change in accounting availability period, and that depends on, with the accounting and the reporting, we determined that actually the end of September is the most realistic revenue recognition period before we close the books. And so that actually allowed us to count an additional month worth of revenue in the financial statements. So it's shifting from unavailable revenue to available revenue. That is kind of a one-time shift as we go forward. If we consistently use the end of September as our cutoff for revenue recognition, that number, we won't have that kind of shift again. That's why it's pointed out as one time. The $2.49 million is actually savings in department budgets for those departments that were over or under budget, netted out, resulting in that $4.9 million. And I just want to point out that I think we've been much more aggressive with the 25-26 budgets when the imposition of the attrition factor or the reduction of the 6%. And I think that departments were forced to reduce their budgets much more close to actuals likely. So we again don't anticipate an ongoing unanticipated savings of $2.49 million. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? No? Please.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, any of these funds available from the prior year closeout are considered one-time funds and not to be used for ongoing expenses, or at least best practice states that they're one-time funds, regardless of whether the revenue is projected to be ongoing, as that $914,000 from property tax represents. Okay, moving on. Here we have a standard chart that we typically present, which is our revenue projections. Now this projects our revenue for the rest of this fiscal year, and this importantly is based off of the auditor controller's submitted mid-year adjustments. So that amount has been adjusted by that 2.8 approximate $1 million. That brings us to a projected 25-26 non-departmental revenue of about $97.6 million. That Still is a little bit lower than what we saw in fiscal year 24-25, which was the $99 million, but it is clearly about 2.8 better than what we had when we originally adopted the budget. So it's a little bit more, it's coming more in line with what we saw in 24-25. And of course, additional details in general are available in the report, but also in Exhibit A attached to this item. Here we have additional revenue projection visualization here for you. This is our non-departmental revenue projections and prior year actuals compared to our salary and benefit expenses for the general fund and for general fund full-time employee or FTE count. So you can see the relationship here between those three data points. The FTE count or the full-time employee count is based on pay period 26-25, which is at the end of December. So it's a point-in-time snapshot from HR, from our position allocation table, and what's truly filled. And you can see, and this is consistent with what we presented in our first quarter report, was that our salary and benefit expenses for this current fiscal year have leveled out somewhat from what we had in 24-25, in spite of the decrease in general fund full-time positions. And of course, you can see that revenue there as well, not rising in the same at the same pace that we do see our salary and benefit expenses increasing. Here's a little bit further data. These are staffing trends. We provided this report as well during the first quarter, but this goes back to 2018 through 2025. This takes a little bit different of a pay period. So you see there that on the far right-hand column, the second to the right, that's a pay period 2 of 26, so it's a little more recent data. But it breaks down the staffing data for general fund, public safety general fund, and then non-general fund departments, and then the amount totals from there. And we can see the net between them, the difference rather, between what we're seeing today and what we had in 2018 is approximately 90 positions, 94 positions to be exact. It's about 8.5% decrease from what we saw in 2018. And in spite of that, or regardless, the salary and benefits expenses have risen by about 42%. And per pay period, that equates to about $1.8 million per pay period in additional salary and benefit expenses since that 2018 data point. Here on slide 8, we have a request that came from the first quarter. Oh,
yeah, we have a question. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, so taking into consideration all of the FTEs and the 8.5% reduction, okay, but it looks like the majority of those are non-general fund. So do you know what the percent is for general fund, the decrease or delta in FTEs over from 2018 to the current? Because it seems like the vast majority, 75 out of the 94 positions, were non-general fund.
If I may, through the chair. The column on the far right, that difference to the 2018 number, has the numbers for the general fund and the public safety general fund. So we have a decrease for a general fund, not including public safety, from the 2018 to current of about 12.1 positions, 12 positions, full-time employees. And then for the public safety positions, it's about 7.
Right, so that's out of starting at 540 positions, and we lost 19 positions.
That is correct.
So that percent is more like 4%. Okay.
Now, just to correlate this data with to compare it with the data that we had on the previous slide, which was this graph right here, which showed that general fund. You see 819. You probably will notice that those numbers don't quite add up to that 819. But what's important here is the social services. Apologies to social services, but they sometimes complicate the numbers because they're within our general fund, but they're not considered general fund typically. And so while they have been included in this graph, we have them broken out into the non-general fund section of the staffing trend. And so some of those positions will be social services as well, the 75. Moving on, we have here a request that was from the board, our Q1 budget presentation, and that was to bring back a 10-year budget trend for public safety departments. Now, public safety includes the district attorney, sheriff's office, the public defender, alternate defender's office, probation, and the juvenile hall. So this goes back to fiscal years 2015, 2016 to current. And this chart represents the revised budget. So you'll have what was budgeted here represented. And really what we're seeing is expenses, the increase in budget represented in increased personnel costs, and some impact from inflationary pressures on their 2000 series of their goods and services, goods and professional services and supplies. We can see from this chart here that you have your alternate defender, your probation, your juvenile hall that have remained fairly static over the last 10 years. They've been fairly flat. You have your public defender and district attorney's office that was fairly flat up until about a small bump during between fiscal years 2021 and 21-22, but even since then sees just a minor or a mild increase. The lion's share, of course, of the public safety revised budget here is going to be captured in the sheriff's office budget and the jail budget. The jail even, of course, from 2017-18 was fairly flat up until about 21-22, and it started to grow a little bit with a spike in 24-25. And there's additional data available in the report for this as well.
Sir, we have a question.
Of course.
If you would, please. Thank you. Supervisor Williams.
This is basically what I found as well, except I went back to 1955, and so it's a little even more dramatic. What is our plan? Because the blue and purple line there at the top, I don't see that flattening out in the year ahead. I mean, we're talking about adding more positions to the new jail wing, which are required. Our spending is rising much faster than our revenue. Are we projecting out a few years? And I think one of the problems this board will have to look at is the cost of staff is not static; it's increasing every year. We need to know how much we have to work with next year, 2 years out, 3 years out. And I think this is one of the best reports I've seen. I think that staff is probably, unfortunately, because there's been years of numbers that have been bouncing around, now there's a hesitancy to believe the number that we see, but I think I know how much work has gone into this. I think it's the most credible we have to date, and I'm trusting it as our best approximation to work with. Can you apply that best approximation to a year or two out? Do you see these expenses flattening?
If I may, through the chair, and I will certainly pass it to either Assistant CEO Sarah Pierce or CEO Darcy Antle, but we do have, as part of our next agenda item, which is the budget workshop item, we do have a 5-year look ahead, and it does explore some of the anticipated expenses that we see coming up in the next fiscal year in particular that we've been able to more accurately specify, as opposed to just making a projection of what we expect. So we think we have a pretty good idea of what expenses we anticipate into the next fiscal year, and then projecting that out until fiscal year 2030-31.
Okay.
And it would make for a much different looking slide to include from the 1950s back. Okay, moving on to our next slide here. Now this is getting into the end of our mid-year budget presentation, but we have our budget schedule moving forward through the rest of this fiscal year. We of course have our mid-year report for today. We have a fee hearing coming forward in April. And then we have our spring budget workshop. So we will have a budget workshop each month leading up to our proposed budget in June. So we'll have one on March 10th. We'll have another one in April and in May. And then any additional that get added to the calendar as well. And then we have in May is our third quarter budget report. And then of course in June, our budget hearings and proposed budget recommended for adoption. And last but not least, we have our CEO recommendations. We have here on our first list of recommendations to accept the fiscal year 25-26 mid-year report as presented, approve the mid-year budget adjustments and administrative cleanup in attachment A, approve fixed assets and structural improvement requests in attachment B, and then here we have fund the recommendations below from the 24-25 unrestricted fund balance. Now, I want to call out one thing in particular that we were made aware of fairly recently, and that is the third from the last item there, the $119,000 for the LJAG grant for cannabis has been withdrawn from the department. That request is no longer a recommendation. So I won't read that part out as part of our CEO recommendations here. We have $2.5 million for risk, $1 million for road maintenance, $500,000 for water, $360,000 for Little River Airport, $300,000 recommended for capital improvements, $250,000 for the Low Gap landfill project, $100,000 for architectural design related to the courthouse relocation, and then to prioritize the remaining funds for the county reserves. And with that, that is the end of our presentation. Open for any questions or comments.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Haschek.
Yeah, and one of the recommendations is to approve the mid-year budget adjustments. And, you know, when was it? May, Supervisor Williams and I proposed the 6% reduction for all departments. And so looking at the mid-year budget, which is, I think, the second attachment, and on page 21, it lists the different departments that are under budget who met the goal of 6%, right? And then the ones that are highlighted are the ones that didn't meet the 6%. And, you know, some of them are very close, but I see that the Board of Supervisors is, instead of meeting the 6% reduction, it's 16% over budget, is $150,000. And so, you know, in looking at some of the charts on the other, with digging down into this a little deeper, it looks like it's because of the salary increase that we gave ourselves in the springtime, and then another adjustment to the salaries that's going to happen. And I'm just wondering why those weren't budgeted, or why we didn't know about those beforehand when we voted on a 3-2 vote to keep the raise, and both of those, because I think that it might have been different, I don't know, if we would have known that this would have put us 16% over budget.
If I may, through the chair, there are part of that table that you're referring to that has the highlighted cells, and I can bring it up here in a moment. But what you're referring to is a comparison between the budget as revised prior to any mid-year adjustments. So it doesn't include any of the adjustments listed in attachment A, because we wanted to give a view of what the budget to the projected would be without any of the adjustments recommended in the attachment. So you could see the true amount difference that departments may be requesting. For example, you have some departments who are requesting adjustments, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or more, and that does represent a general fund ask, even though some other departments may be coming in lower or adjusting down. And then but we wanted to show that, hey, this department is asking for additional appropriations for their budget. And in the case of the Board of Supervisors, there are budget adjustments in there for the different salary items to get corrected from the originally adopted budget.
So that is $150,000.
The amount, sorry, apologies.
The adjustment would be $150,000.
we could add up the amount that's specifically in there right now. I don't believe it adds up to the exact $150,000, but it's closer, I think, to 60 as far as the mid-year budget report's concerned. I could add it up right now for you if you need.
Well, I'm just looking at the chart, and that's what I see is the difference between the revised and the projected.
The projected, if I may through the chair, is based on what the executive office is projecting in our salary projections. So we have a document where every pay period we project out where we believe departments are going to be coming, where they're going to land with their budget based on their prior pay period activity, and then we annualize that out through the rest of the year. So if there's any spike in activity, it might shift some of our calculations that we try to go back and take a fine tooth between each department to see where they come in at. That's what that 150 in part represents. Okay.
I'm just looking at, we had the state audit report that said, our finances are, our financial condition is declining. And we just heard the CEO talk about structural deficit. And then we have some of these, we got bailed out by this 2.8 million that the auditor came up with. But really, if we didn't have that, we would be creating more of a structural mess. Because, I see like some of these, we're second to the top of percentage increase. The DA, I think it was at 18%. And then, so when we start looking at some of these expenses that are structural, then I'm just looking at the long-term financial health of the county and how we deal with this structural mess that we're creating.
Would you be able to stop sharing just for a moment? As Supervisor Haschek was talking about this, I showed this previously. Since Prop 13 passed 1978, you can see the yellow is the jail rising the steepest, and then the sheriff, and then the blue is our property value, which is where the bulk of our discretionary dollars come from. Well, how do you spend at a higher rate? You cut something else. Roads. That's the green line. We've defunded roads in our county pretty much on a consistent path since 1978. So when the public contacts me, it's about why are the roads so bad? And the answer is because we've defunded the roads. So I think that one of the things John's getting at is when you have a structurally imbalanced budget and you balance it for the year, you're hiding a deferred maintenance. You're hiding a cut somewhere, right? It's the only way to make ends meet. What is it that we're hiding? Today we just decided to fill more positions that one would argue we can't afford to fill those positions. Well, we can fill them, we're just going to cut something else, but we're not talking about the thing that we're going to cut. What is it this year? Where are we going to hide the discrepancy this year? Because there's more liabilities and maintenance than there is revenue. And so I'm constantly struggling as I watch these presentations to try to figure out where are we hiding the ever accruing negative account balance of deferred maintenance. And roads is an obvious one, probably county facilities, right? We had a report that our capital facilities, what did we need?
If I may through the chair.
Hundreds of millions.
We know there's at least 8 million worth of deferred maintenance.
Yeah. So we're saying it's a success. We got a balanced budget, but it's only because we can make payroll. We're running a deficit that is going to catch up with us, and it'll be the surprise of there's a meeting and there's an item on the agenda and we need $50 million for roofs because they're all caved in, right? It'll be something of that nature. This is just speaking from experience over time of putting together. You get these surprises, and it's because we're not talking about what we're going without in the current year. We're waiting until there's a crisis and then asking, how did we get here? John, is this on point?
capital improvement projects that aren't being done. But we do have a balanced budget, and I'm just saying, you know, when we look at it, you know, we were supposed to self-monitor to get down to that 6% reduction that everyone else is supposed to get to, and instead we have a 16% increase to our budget. And so it just doesn't seem right to me that we're asking everyone else to make sacrifices to do more with less, and we haven't done that. And I don't know if it's because we just didn't have enough information or what at the beginning when we made a decision in June or July.
Supervisor Mulhern.
Unrelated. I can wait my turn.
Supervisor Williams.
16% with what is a baseline, right? I would argue was miscalculated. Our original estimate was wrong.
Yeah, it could have been. Yeah. So.
And that's one of the difficulties with these types of reports. It's not a criticism about staff, just the nature of these reports. Even when you're getting credible, truthful information, it's very rare that you have the whole picture. And so I think what was presented was accurate, but you know, looking at it in the context of all the additional information, I would argue that 16% represents poor estimation of what the true cost would be. That's one point. And the other is we could have reduced travel, right? That was the self-policing. I think when we had the discussion, it was, let's all be careful about, and I mean, there's reasons to go to conferences and represent the county, and I appreciate when any supervisor can take that on and, you know, look out for us. But I think that was identified as the opportunity to come closer to break even. I don't think we did it. Is it worth having a discussion about that?
Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. Staff's presentation done. I had a question actually about the presentation on page 4 of the slide deck. It shows the budgeted amount at what I believe is actually the projected amount. So the budgeted amount, according to Exhibit A, I believe, was $94,748,051. So that top number there on the left, that was the 97 million is our projected, correct?
If I may through the chair, yes.
Okay, so that's just before we approve it. I just want to note that that's incorrect and should be corrected.
If I may through the chair, sorry, can you explain? Can you restate what's incorrect?
The amount.
If I may through the chair, I believe what Supervisor Mulhern is talking about is that the bullet there says fiscal year 25-26 budgeted revenue and it's projected revenue.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd just like that corrected. Thank you. I've been a supervisor for 5 years now. I think that this is probably the most information that I've ever received when trying to make budget decisions. So I just want to really appreciate and thank staff for continuing to improve the process for us. I wanted to comment on the CEO recommendations around the $1 million for roads. I think, although I'm very fortunate to represent the 2nd District, which is mostly a city, I certainly hear from the entire county and community around road maintenance and the struggles that our constituents have related to that. And I think that what I'm hoping for is that $1 million can get spread throughout the county and be able to have opportunities to impact, residents that are the most impacted by challenging roads. And I know that's not going to get us very far, but I hope that we take a thoughtful approach to it.
Supervisor Haschak.
Well, going back to this mid-year budget and the projected expenses, and we look at, some of them that are over by 50,000 or 10,000 or whatever, and going down to like the district attorney, it's over by 1.25 million. And so, you know, we had discussion last spring about, you know, some cuts to the district attorney's budget with the Prop 172 money. And then we also put on the 6% reduction. And the district attorney has said that he's not, you know, he can't do his job with that kind of budget. So at what point do we just say, okay, well, it's going to be $7,893,000, and that's what we're going to budget for next year? Or is that what we're thinking? I'm just trying to figure it out. So,
if I may, through the chair, we can have further discussions on that in the next 26-27 projections, the workshop next item. But yes, that is what it's saying right now, is that the district attorney, as an example, is unable to meet his 6% attrition, plus his revenue was also reduced through the Prop 172, not only by the board action, but also Prop 172 is coming in lower than expected. So it's an overall kind of double impact.
If I may, through the chair, there's also an increase in salaries. So the final year of the current labor agreements came through, and that was a large hit to those departments.
So when we look at this chart on page 9 of the presentation, what we're seeing is like the sheriff's budget has gone up, the jail goes up, and the district attorney is going up. Would that be a new way of looking at that chart with this new number or projection?
If I may, through the chair, if there are any, since this chart represents the revised budget and not the actual, so this chart doesn't include that, let's say, the estimated to be over by 1.2, because it's just what was budgeted for. If we were to adjust it for where the actuals came in at, we would see obviously a variance in this year for the district attorney, if it ends up their budget being where we project it to come in at. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that line that slopes down a little bit is what we budgeted.
Correct.
But the actual is going to be going up. Right. Okay.
Would you like to continue, sir?
The presentation at this point is completed, and it's just open for further questions or comments.
Okay. Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, okay, so one way I would think about budgeting is we project how much revenue we can anticipate for the year, and we divide it up to the various uses, and that's all the revenue there is. And I don't see how we're doing that here. It looks like you can't have departments spending faster than the increase in revenue without cutting somebody else. And I know, this argument of how do we prioritize public safety? This county basically only pays for public safety. The only thing that's not public safety that's significant that we're paying for is the departments that collect the revenue for public safety. This county's become a public safety county. We don't even really have roads, right? Roads are in decline. So I think it needs to be a collaboration. You need to have the elected department heads at the table and talk about how do we want to divide up what we have. Because you can't just keep giving everybody more. It doesn't exist. I mean, this is pretty basic. People that are watching at home know that they can't spend more than their monthly revenue. And you have a county that at every chance tries to exceed the means it has to live within.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more. Supervisor Haschek?
Well, I think Supervisor Williams is making the point about we got bailed out this year with this infusion of $2.8 million that the auditor controller received. That wasn't expected. And so with that, we're able to balance our budget. But if we're creating a structural deficit or digging the hole deeper for future years, then how's that going to play out?
Go ahead,
Well,
Supervisor.
part of the reason, I mean, the auditor controller didn't find money. It's not like, the public hears this and thinks that the county can't keep track of its dollars and there was $2.8 million over there and we just found it. That's not the case. It's we had positions that were funded and unfilled, or people left a position and it took months to recruit and fill it again, right? So some of the savings came from positions that we budgeted, but then weren't fully we didn't fully spend during the year. I think we've gotten a lot better, the board, the executive office working together, closing out those types of situations. We have far fewer positions that are funded and unfilled, which means next year we shouldn't anticipate auditor controller coming up with $2.8 million. There's, right, we've spent that in the upcoming years by narrowing the ratio of filled positions to unfilled positions. So I'm with Supervisor Haschek. We're building in an assumption that auditor controller will find the money and allow us to close a deficit at the end of the year that may not exist in future years.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So there were very few positions outside of public safety that had budgeted positions that were unfilled. For most part, the budgeted positions for 25-26 were actual positions with people currently employed. We can defer to Shamise, but I believe that the increase of the 2.8 is largely related to additional property tax that may have come in, not unfilled positions. But I would defer to Shamise.
So if that's the case, we were recruiting for 69 positions plus all the positions we added today. Right. We're actively recruiting for 69 positions plus positions that we added today. Some of those are a general fund hit. That'll come out of what this year was 2.8 million.
If I may, through the chair, without knowing exactly what the 69 positions are, a majority of them, I believe, probably could be social services. And as Director Parker stated, those positions are not general fund impacts. And depending on the ratios of the positions that are hired, it does increase revenue for them. The revenue, the 2.8, I'll defer to Shamise, but I believe it's mostly related to increases in property tax. It may not be the standard property tax. It may be more supplemental, but I'll defer to her.
So for example, the 8 positions that we're going to hire at the jail, which I'm going to rely on the sheriff, but if you ask me, 8 is too few for a wing that size. You're always going to have somebody out on leave or on vacation. 7 seems kind of low. That's a general fund hit.
If I may, through the chair, yes. And that's not factored in this right now because we're on mid-year for 25-26. You will see those added in for 26-27 presentation.
Understood, but the 2.8 that we had this year, if we had to pay for those positions at the jail, we wouldn't have had 2.8.
No, so we're projecting, and Sheriff Kendall can come up, but based on, I think, some of his projections, it's 1.8 million for 8 positions for the jail for 26-27. But I'd just like to clarify, Supervisor Haschak is correct in stating that had the 2.8 not come in, we would have been looking at being under or over budget by 2.8 million. Part of that does have to do with the attrition tracking. We're about 85%, I believe, 4.2 million of the 5.2 million we've realized we're about $1 million short on the attrition savings that we projected. The other part of this is that there are departments coming in over budget for other expenses or reduction of other revenue such as Prop 172.
Chair, if I may, I would just add, we do have an ongoing vacancy rate, which Supervisor just mentioned. I'm not sure what that is now. It has ranged from 10 to 21% over the course of my tenure here. I would also just like to check with the chair to make sure it feels like we're going a little bit out of mid-year into 26-27, which is the next item. So if we can kind of wrap up one and get into the other, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So
Supervisor Wright?
My final comment is I'm with Supervisor Mulhern. I think this is the best mid-year presentation we've had, and the reporting has only gotten better. Thank you.
Supervisor Haschak?
Yeah, I'll move the recommended CEO, well, the recommendations from the CEO.
I don't think we've had public comment yet.
Second with a clarifying question.
Go ahead.
Supervisor Haschak, were you wanting to incorporate Supervisor Mulhern's proposal about the roads?
Well, what I heard from Supervisor Mulhern is that she didn't want to just concentrate it in one area. And I think that that's something that the executive office needs to work on with the Department of Transportation.
If I may, and I'm not quite sure if Director DeShield is on. I had a conversation with him yesterday. I believe he presented almost a year ago in hopes at that time to get $1 million, where these funds would be applied and how he would be using them. I think it would be added to his ongoing maintenance projects. But I would look to see if DOT has representation on.
He is on.
Okay.
Good morning, Board. Howard DeShield, your Director of Transportation. Yes, the CEO is referring to, and for the public's benefit, April 8th, 2025, item 4C. We did have a discussion about different options if we were given additional funding. At this point, I hear what Supervisor Mulhern is saying, and that leaves us with what is option 3, where we do smaller overlays in all around the county. That's still an option with county forces for short patches. But I'm also really interested in option 2, which is where we just keep our RMRA, our road maintenance and rehabilitation program going. And, you know, we had a cash flow problem last summer with the bridges, and I would really like to see how our cash comes in for late next year. You know, we'll be on the coast, so we want to chip seal in late summer, early fall. And if money is, you know, caught up by then, and if this $1 million would help us keep on schedule doing RMRA, which is the 20-year plan, corrective maintenance plan, you all know what I'm talking about. That does move all around the county as we go through the 20 years. And I'd rather not miss a year. I'd rather keep that going. But if not, we can do smaller crew-led patches dispersed through the county. So everything on that agenda item would be on the table, and I'm sure we could it would be very helpful to have this additional $1 million, and we would certainly put it to work in one of the ways that's described in that April 12th item. Thanks. I'll take any questions.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. I tried to pull up the item, and unfortunately it won't open, but that was not for me, the request that we do the 20-year plan with the $1 million. I think it is important that we do smaller jobs, including pothole repairs. And while the original 20-year plan does seek to spread itself around the county, it misses a lot of our residents. And, you know, 5 years that I've been on that board, we've just continued with that plan, and I support that as a previous board had approved it. But I think this is our opportunity to try to meet the needs of some of the constituents that are not on that list.
Okay, we'll go to the public. Anybody in the room like to speak on this item? Sheriff?
Sonia Pyle, and I live on Road B. I have for 33 years. I have called the county 18 times to come and fill the potholes on Road B. Some of us drive very low, economical, to the ground cars. A lot of people that live on that road drive great, big, heavy trucks. It seems fair to me that they pay a higher percentage for road maintenance in comparison to me who drives a Prius and doesn't weigh very much. That's one thing. Two things is, would it be possible to change the timing of the street lights by the courthouse so we go north and south at the same light so people don't have to stop right in front of the old courthouse and then stop in the next block and such? And you go north, south, and east, west and time them better so there's a better flow and they stop. The third thing is, I used to be a school bus driver and I know how hard it is to make tight turns. When you're coming from Perkins, turning right onto North State at the courthouse, the car that's first in line in the left lane heading south, if it would back up and have a limit line, so then the bus coming, the MTAs, could come in and take a little bit of that lane to make a safe curb or not hit the curb when they go around, because I see them. It's really, really hard. That's a hard turn in a 40-foot bus. I guess those are my main points.
Thank you. Yes,
Just
Supervisor.
for the speaker's awareness and for the folks here from Redwood Valley's on the 20-year road plan for 27, 28, including Road B. And your other concerns should be directed to the City of Ukiah. Those are both City of Ukiah projects, and they have a traffic engineering committee where you can take up those concerns. The new traffic signals are based on demand, and so if a vehicle pulls up on a one-way street that's opposite of State Street, those lights will signal for the State Street traffic to stop. So that's a City of Ukiah question.
Very good, thank you.
Sheriff?
Good morning, Chair Norvell, members of the board, Matt Kendall, Mendocino County Sheriff. A couple of questions about the personnel for the projected opening of the jail. One of the things that we're working on is we're working with the CCP, the Community Corrections Partnership, hoping to get more funding for the personnel in the jail, but we're also working with the Department of State Hospitals right now. If folks will remember back, Department of State Hospitals was under a lawsuit because they hadn't built any new bed space and they weren't taking care of their end of their end of the business, and so they reached out to sheriffs and we began the jail-based competency treatment programs. And our new jail is very well set, one of the few jails in the state that's very well set up to be able to deal with that. So we're in negotiations with the Department of State Hospitals for more personnel to be able to do that work, because ultimately that is their work that we are doing for them. And so I'm hopeful that we can pick up some more personnel and not hit the general fund with that. Captain Van Patten's been working on that very, very hard. I've had some discussions with the director of the Department of State Hospitals, and they seem to be very happy with the direction that we're looking at and we're going right now. And so we're trying to kind of not have as big of an impact on the general fund budget. But we get into these conversations about, you know, and Supervisor Williams, you're absolutely correct. Law enforcement and public safety has become a pretty big burden on most counties, not just ours. But when we talk about what was happening in 1950, I'm sorry, I remember what was happening in 1980. I missed the world that I grew up in. Let's look at the growth throughout the county. How many county councils, or how many deputy county councils and county councils did we have in 1950? We had one, but that the world has changed, and so we need more. The new game seems to be to go after the government for everything, and the government is suffering the brunt of this. We look at the growth of the county all the way across the county, and law enforcement is just one portion of this. And granted, yes, I understand that public safety is a big ask, but it is very clearly stated in the Constitution of the state that public safety has to come first, because all things will follow after that. The other thing that we need to look at is, what are we doing to have growth in Mendocino County? I mean, we can talk about, we have a spending problem, but we also have to talk about the revenue problem. And so as we kind of navigate forward in this, I think we're going to have to take a little bit more of a global approach, or at least I'm hoping that we can. I don't see any rainbows on the horizon right now. There's bad news all the way across the state. I've spoken with a couple of sheriffs just this morning regarding those exact same issues. So perhaps we all come together. We all start looking at how we get around this, how we get through this, and have some growth and have some revenues begin again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nobody else in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no further comment online.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rakes?
Thank you. Two final comments here. The first one being, I had mentioned earlier, and on our slide regarding our schedule, it said March 10th for our next budget workshop. Because we did our budget workshop today on the 24th, it's not a lot of time for the March 10th one, so we're going to propose moving that to the March 24th meeting instead, to give a little bit more time in between them. And then for the CEO recommendations, the Cannabis Department removed the ask for the $119,000 from the LJAG grant. So moving those recommendations, I think there'd need to be a clear statement that that one is omitted from that list of recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Haschak.
And just for clarification, the $500,000 for water, what was that again?
If I may, through the chair, that amount, that's to go to the HO, or the water agency, for unanticipated water expenses that we may have throughout the rest of this fiscal year.
I mean, is there any idea what those are?
I will pass the mic to CEO Antle.
If I may, through the chair, it would be to support the ongoing work of IWPC and what are we calling the other one? The Eel Russian River, ERUP. So it would be to go to support the work that's moving forward.
Supervisor Williams.
Yeah, what I hear from constituents around the county is that they would like to see more road work done. So I would be inclined to reduce that 500 to, it's unanticipated. We don't even know what it's for at this point. It has no use. I don't know, lower it to 50,000 and put 450 towards roads. We're trying to reflect public values. I hear people support law enforcement. I mean, some people have issues, but overall people want to save communities, and they support roads. That's what I hear the most. And I don't hear people talking about allocating $500,000 to unanticipated consequences or projects related to water.
Supervisor Mulhern.
I do hear people talking about the need for unanticipated consequences related to water in front of this board quite vocally related to the Potter Valley project, and the IWPC and the Old River Project Authority are the Mendocino County's key ability to move forward with water security. So we absolutely do have an incredible amount of deferred road maintenance, but setting aside $500,000, and I don't think the costs are entirely unanticipated. If you look at any IRPA meeting or IWPC meeting, you can see that legal expenses, future planning expenses are mounting. There's a lot of opportunities to receive grants, and I hope that we're successful with that. But if the County of Mendocino wants to continue participating in those conversations, they need to set money aside.
Yeah, I myself have heard a lot of concern from the public about the county wanting to take a larger role in water, investing more into the water issue into the county. So I would support leaving the $500,000 for water. Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, we have a lot of needs in this county, and looking at capital improvements, $300,000, that is like pennies, you know, when we have an $8 million need for some of these projects. But the $500,000 for water, and you know, this board took a position in support of the IWPC. We have been, I mean, this year it went up to $83,000, which was our contribution. I would just like to know what the IWPC and ERPA want to do with that money before signing off on it. Because I hadn't heard this before. And so I'm just surprised at that ask.
Supervisor Mulhern.
I do not know if the executive office has any more information at this point, but I would just say that Supervisor Klein included in the supervisor's report a summary of the last IWPC meeting, which included the strengths and challenges of moving forward for water storage in Potter Valley. and that IWPC board's recommendation as we move forward. So, I mean, that is going to be a cost that IWPC has not budgeted for, and I think you can just start there and continue to move up rapidly. So I think setting aside 500,000 is probably not what the asks are going to be, but it is a safe buffer zone, and I'm surprised that we're having this conversation right now.
Okay, so we do have, I believe, a motion and a second on the table, but the motion should be amended minus the 119,000. Yes, Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I can wait until you're done. I just want to make sure that the makers of the motion are including updating the presentation to show the budgeted amount. And if we could let the board know when that's updated for the record, I'd appreciate it.
The second agrees.
Yeah.
Ms. Supervisor, I believe you were the maker of the motion.
Yeah, I agree. And what do you want from me?
Well, you made a motion with $119,000 on there, so your motion needs to be amended minus.
Well, yeah, I'd like to amend that, and I'd like a report back next meeting for what the $500,000 for water is going to be used for.
Can we get a, if I may through the chair, can we get a restatement of the motion?
Sure.
Well, the motion is to approve the CEO recommendations minus the $119,000 for the LJAG cannabis grant, and to bring back a report on what the $500,000 for water is going to be used on.
And would the maker agree to also include fixing this slideshow and letting supervisors know when it's been fixed?
Certainly.
And the second?
Yes.
Okay. We have a first by Supervisor Haschak, seconded by Williams. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay. So we have a scheduled break for 11:15, but we have R5 after that. Ms. Pierce, do you think that we're going to get through R5 in the next 40 minutes?
If I may through the chair, I believe so.
Okay. Then we'll move on to item R5. Discussion and possible action, including acceptance of presentation on Mendocino County's preliminary fiscal year 26-27 budget and possible direction to staff. Again, the executive office.
If I may through the chair, Sarah Pierce, Assistant CEO. So the presentation today in front of you, if you can move to the first slide. So the first section of the slide deck outlines the county-wide priorities that each of the board members submitted during the January workshop. The second section, the 4 bullet points, are the agreed-upon priorities which were outlined in the workshop. And as we've been discussing all morning, the county must continue to focus on modernization and process improvement in order to move the county forward. So if you can go to the next slide. So the next slide in front of you outlines various estimates if the county were to bring forward a sales tax measure on the next ballot. And as a note, the Department of Transportation will be in front of you on March 10th outlining a sales tax specifically around roads. But this would be what a sales tax may look like if the board brought forward one for the incorporated versus unincorporated. So at a half cent, for example, additional revenue about $9.6 million could be obtained if it was countywide, and $3.8 if it was unincorporated. If we were to move forward with a sales tax that was countywide, we would need to request for the max to be lifted, as there are 2 cities that are already maxed out on their sales tax. So if you could move to the next slide. So these next 2 slides present a request from the board during the January workshop. The board had asked to see what the next year's estimate on expenses would be when we compare back to 25-26. So as a note, this is a very high-level estimate that was completed by the executive office and does not include any departmental asks or adjustments. So the departments are currently working on their 26-27 budget and are requested to have it submitted by Monday. So we'll be back in front of you, as Tony said, on the 24th with some more details. But as of right now, this is a very high-level estimate. So on this first slide, this is looking at salary and benefits. So in 25-26, the year we're in right now, there was $90.9 million set aside for salaries and benefits, and that did include a $5.2 million reduction in the general fund for the attrition savings. If we were to take the current staffing as of the first pay period in January and add estimated factors such as step increases, the new retirement rates, a 10% increase in health plan for January through June of 2027, and known staffing requirements for the jail, which is the 1.8, and a newly elected position for the splitting the AC-TTC, we're estimating salary and benefits to be about $93.5 million, which means that the county is already in a $2.5 to $2.6 million higher than what our current year is. If you'll go to the next slide. And actually, I should also note that that slide does not include or factor in any other salary adjustments, such as COLAs, only includes step increases for current staffing. So on this slide 5, the executive office looked at current operating expenses that we knew were ongoing and applied various factors to each of the categories to try to estimate what the increase will be. So there's a small increase for the Toshiba printers for the next 3 years. We've been working with CAL FIRE. We believe that their dispatch contract will be increasing about $19,000 to $20,000. We have estimated, probably pretty conservatively, $500,000 for CMSP or indigent care. Based on conversations with CSAC and the state, that may need to be increased because of HR1 impacts. We've also applied a 7% factor to utilities, and then between and a 10% factor for the medical services that are provided in the jail. That kind of goes along with what we believe our health plan increases will be as well. And then an overall average of 1 to 3% on other expense categories. So those estimations include another almost $2 million impact of ongoing operating expenses. So without looking at revenue, this means right now we'll begin the budget cycle between $4.5 to $5 million in a deficit. This does not include any other departmental asks. So I'm going to skip over this slide for one moment. If we can go to slide 7. So slide 7 is what Supervisor Williams, I think you were asking for, is an estimate looking out for 5 years where our revenue and expenses may end. So the 26-27 amount that you see is based on, the 25-26 amount that you see is based on the mid-year projections we just talked about. The 26-27 expenses are based on the 2 slides we just discussed, the applying those increased factors to ongoing expenses. And then for the future years, 27, 28 through 2030, 31, we are applying just a flat 3% inflator, which will cover overall expenses, including steps. That may be a conservative approach, but that's what we chose to use, was a 3% overall. So when we compare that to our average growth in revenue, it's about 4.8%. So based on this, we do not believe our revenue will catch up with our expenses until 2030, using those factors. The other thing we would also like to call out is in 2030, our initial COPs are paid off, which is about a $1.8 million expense per year. We'll still continue to have the new $10 million COPs, but that's only about a $400,000 to $500,000 expense per year. So there will be another reduction of expenses in 2030 related to COPs. So that we went through kind of quickly, but I'll stop right there to see if there's any questions.
Supervisor Williams.
I think the 3% assumption is unrealistic. If you look at the last 10 years, that hasn't been the case. And we're in a period of much heavier inflation. What would it look like if you were to plug in 4.5?
If I may, through the chair, we would have to bring that back, but we can use a factor different. If that's
So is that, I mean, it should be the board directing it, not Williams, but can we give some direction to come back with this projection based on the best estimate of inflation for the next decade?
I would support that.
If there's a way to do it with a spreadsheet, so when you show it to us and we ask, rather than just a image on a slide, I know you know this, but I have a feeling the board will ask, what about this, what about that? It'd be great if in real time we could play with some of those numbers and see what the effect would be. And then the other is, what do you think, what's the assumption on staffing over this 5-year period to keep the current head count?
If I may, through the chair, yes, this is based on current head count. And applying the new positions for the jail. This does include the new positions for the jail.
Okay.
And this is just general fund, does not include social services.
Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. Can you help me understand why we're using, for this particular slide, so I think this is where the public, has concerns or challenges around transparency. So we're using the $86 million projected amount for total revenue instead of the $97 million for total revenue.
If I may, through the chair, I will turn it back over to Deputy CEO Tony Rakes, but I do believe this excludes transfers.
If I may, through the chair, Assistant CEO Pierce is correct. It doesn't include operating transfers in or out. This is the total ND amount that we have available for general fund. But I understand, I believe, Supervisor, your concern about if that wasn't specified on the slide, that it didn't include those amounts or those transfers.
So if we expect to have those transfers and we are budgeting for them, right? It is projected. Why are we not including it in this slide?
If I may,
go ahead.
If I may, through the chair, we don't include those transfers because they're not included in terms of the overall expenses. We're not including the operating transfers out in the overall general fund expenses because we've considered them above the line, right? They're obligations like roads, library that happen on their own in spite of anything that the budget team does. And so we want to show what happens, what we have available after all of those non-discretionary obligations and what we have in terms of what funds we have control of appropriating.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce. So the 97 amount also includes the revenue such as Measure P. The 97 amount.
It says it excludes Measure P. This is Exhibit A from the previous item.
Right. If I may, through the chair, the exhibit that you're talking about, excludes operating transfers in, out, and Measure P revenue.
The 97. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Supervisor Haschak.
Morning and like the 69 that are in active recruitment, or how does that the FTE come out on that?
If I may, through the chair, this is based on the calculation from the January 1st pay period and only factors in the additional positions for the jail.
Okay, so it doesn't include the active recruitments, or
it may include active recruitments if it's backfilling a position that had left. Okay. But it does not include any additional asks.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
What do we think the annual increase was for the sheriff's office, the jail, and the DA, percentage-wise?
If I may, through the chair, the overall expense or the salary? We would have to come back for either one.
Overall.
I think I don't have that.
You would agree it's a lot more than 3%. A lot more. So when I look at this, I'm just wondering if I think this is assuming that all of the annual increases normalize and are consistent at about 3%. But the sheriff's office might be more like 8%. And I don't think that trend will stop. So when we looked at the previous presentation, we saw the rakes chart of jail and sheriff and district attorney. Those slopes were much steeper than 3%. Shouldn't we project that into the future being the case?
If I may,
I mean, what we're hearing from the sheriff is that this is not likely to change.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce. So we are basing it on known factors right now, which is the staffing is what it is, and we are not factoring in increases. So if there was a direction from the board to factor in something for salaries, we could.
I think we have to, because for the next 5 years, salaries won't be flat, and whatever average slope jail, sheriff, and DA experience will continue into the future. I mean, nobody's standing up saying that, we had a rough year. Next year it'll be flat, right? They're saying this is just how it is. So if I think that should be our assumption, that whatever growth in the departments we've seen for the last few years is what we'll see for the next few years.
If I may, through the chair, so Supervisor, you're requesting to continue the wage increases that we have seen historically. We are projecting in this slide roughly whatever Sarah mentioned, I think it was 2.5 million ongoing merit and step increases. That's a known. So that number is built into here. What's not built in here is any COLA or other increases that this board may negotiate.
CEO, there's two. You're right. The two concerns baked in. One is the COLAs. We know over a 5-year period there will be COLAs of some sort, right? A county doesn't keep salaries flat for 5 years. And I know we can't get into negotiations and what that'll be, but it has to be an assumption more than 0. I would use historic averages just to ballpark it. And then the second is the 3% may be median, right? But most of our spending is in public safety, and public safety is on a much steeper slope. Whatever that is, I think we should use it as the assumption going forward. So if we find out that sheriff, DA, jail annual increase was 7%, we ought to use 7%, not 3%, for their portion of our spending.
If I may, through the chair, Sarah Pierce, we can do that. And as I had stated before, we are also waiting for the departments to submit their budgets. So we'll have much more detailed information at the next workshop because we will have had the budget conferences with departments and have a better understanding.
Yes, and then my last concern is I think we shouldn't use their budgeted number. I think we should use what they actually spent, because those are two vastly different, right? Some departments will be $1 million over, and we're going to pay for it. So we should assume we're going to pay that every year.
If I may, through the chair, so the projected 25-26, it is including what they're projecting to be, the actuals, not necessarily the budget. And then 26-27 is based on the estimates that were discussed in the previous slides. And then 24-25 is the actual.
So that actual being close of books,
yes,
as reported. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not seeing any more questions.
Okay. If I may, through the chair, to finish through the slides, the slide on slide 6 that I jumped over are other one-time expense considerations that the board can think through for the remaining portion of the unrestricted fund balance. There's, as we've talked about, water, deferred maintenance, additional road maintenance, system modernizations, and then implementations of the state audit. And then if we could jump down to this last slide, slide 8, which discusses our county reserves. Right now, at the end of fiscal year 24-25, the county reserve was at $14 million. We are going to be back in front of you on March 24th with a revised reserve policy. And just as a reminder from the state audit, whether you include social services or exclude social services, the $14 million is still significantly underfunded. It should be anywhere between 25 to 40 million versus 14 million. So that is what our presentation is, if there's any other questions.
Okay. Supervisor Haschak.
At something like 22 million. So how am I reading this?
I'm sorry, can you restate the question?
Well, it says County General Reserve Fund balance is currently 14,042,000, right?
So that is part of the 14 million is part of the orange section, the general fund reserve. There are other reserves that are more restricted, such as
The retirement contribution
correct.
reserve and other
yes.
designated.
So the
that
14 million
includes
is the portion that you are able to use unrestricted.
Okay. Yeah.
But according to the state audit and GFO recommendations, that unrestricted amount should be closer to 25 to 40 million, depending on if social services is included.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, nothing more? I'm not seeing any more questions from the board. We'll go to the public. Anybody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comments online.
Okay, back to the board for action and or discussion. Ms. Pierce, there was a little bit of direction given. Did you get all of that?
If I may, through the chair, can we have a restatement? I do believe it is to bring back the updated slide into a more interactive format where we can apply different percentages.
Yes, yes, and I think we would like to use the average of prior X years, leave it to staff to decide what's appropriate. I would think 3 to 5. And apply those, so instead of having one percentage that's just across all county costs, I would apply the growth we see in sheriff spending, the growth we see in DA spending, do it more by the department. I think we'll get a vastly different answer of what year we hit that inflection of revenue and expenses crossing.
If I may, through the chair, we can bring that back into the sections of general government, public safety, and our functional areas.
That works. Chair, is that acceptable?
Yes, thank you. Supervisor Haschak.
Well, it seems like that should be incorporated into the motion, because I thought we weren't giving direction outside of motions.
I'm sorry, I thought it was.
Okay. So just make it into a motion, I think. And
the county council.
I believe that you have a pending motion still on this, which sort of did a motion, and then you had a lot of comment. But
okay.
I think they would go back to the maker of the motion to amend, or you need to vote on this motion, decide whether that goes.
So I'll amend my motion to add those recommendations from Supervisor Williams.
If we can get a restatement fully, Lily, sorry.
Go ahead.
John, would you like me to, or you got it?
Yeah, I was just going to accept the presentation with your. So
can we read back? Can we read back the current motion?
Accept presentation on Mendocino County's preliminary fiscal year 2026-2027 budget and direction to staff to return with this informational presentation, including inflation for the next decade, using the average of prior X years, 3 to 5 years, and apply the growth by the department.
I think you got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'll vote for that.
Do you have everything you need?
Yes.
Okay.
Through the chair, if I may, I do need a clear second. I have Supervisor Haschak as the mover.
I think I was the second.
Correct. Okay, we'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, so it is, I can't, straight 10, 11 o'clock. Okay. We can either take our break now or try and tackle R6?
If I may through the chair, can we take a break?
Yes. All right. We'll take a 15-minute break, come back at 11:15.
Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
Everyone, we're going to move over R6 because the presenter isn't here, and move to R7. Notice of public hearing, discussion, and possible action, including review and consider the report and recommendation of the Planning Commission on proposed adoption of amendments to Chapter 6 of the Mendocino County General Plan for community-specific policies for the community of Redwood Valley. Adopt a resolution adopting the addendum to the Environmental Impact Report for Mendocino County General Plan and approving the amendments to Chapter 6 of the Mendocino County General Plan for community-specific policies for the community of Redwood Valley. And 3, adoption of a proclamation recognizing the Redwood Valley Municipal Advisory Council for its work on development of the Redwood Valley Community Action Plan. Clerk, have we established proper notice?
Proper notice has been established, and all correspondence, if any received, has been sent to your emails.
Okay, so we will have a staff presentation. First, we will open the public hearing, have staff presentation, public comment, final marks from staff if needed, supervisor questions or comments to staff, And then we'll close the public hearing. So it is 11:16. We will open the public hearing. Please.
Good morning. Russ Ford, Senior Planner and Project Coordinator. In front of you today is Project GP 2024-01, our proposed general plan amendment. This project proposes minor updates to Chapter 6, the community-specific policies of the general plan, specific to the Redwood Valley community. The project applicant is the Redwood Valley Municipal Advisory Council, RVMAC, in conjunction with the Planning Department. Government Code Section 65300 mandates that each planning agency prepare a comprehensive general plan to regulate physical development within its jurisdiction. The statute lists a number of elements that are required in each general plan, such as land use, safety, and housing, but also provides agencies latitude to include other elements as desired. The County of Mendocino has chosen to include an optional element which covers community-specific policies for the unincorporated communities throughout the county. Consistent with state law, the county may update or amend its general plan as needed, in addition to the proposed policy changes. Staff has included a number of minor, non-substantial corrections throughout Chapter 6 aimed at improving consistency and updating information. So some quick background on this project. The RVMAC was created by the Board of Supervisors in 2016 and asked to create an updated Community Action Plan, a CAP, which had existed in draft form since about 2004. Between 2017 and 2023, the RVMAC hosted a series of stakeholder meetings to gather input on the CAP and submitted a draft to the Board of Supervisors for preliminary review and direction in 2023, where the board directed planning staff to work with the RVMAC in development of the CAP. Along with the CAP, the RVMAC also developed a set of proposed design guidelines that would regulate future development within the community. At its February 2024 meeting, the board recommended changes to the CAP and design guidelines that would move the project forward as non-binding guidance rather than development requirements. Concerns were raised with the design guidelines in particular that imposing additional development standards would add costs and time to permits. Following that, the RVMAC made revisions to the CAP document and resubmitted. The final CAP was submitted, contains not only a number of policies, goals, and action items, but a lot of exposition and background information regarding how the CAP came to be. While this information is relevant in historical context, it's not necessarily appropriate for incorporation into the general plan. Many of the recommended policies would be outside of the scope of the county's authority, and many were already contained within other portions of the general plan. So staff worked through the document and pulled out a number of recommendations felt suitable for incorporation, which are presented in the red line version of Chapter 6. Here's a brief summary of the recommended changes to the community-specific policies. Policy 5 is being updated to focus on redevelopment of the old Redwood Valley Middle School instead of the lot on the corner of Schoolway and East Road, which has since been developed with mini warehouses. An action item for Policy 6 has been added to support development of pedestrian access in the downtown core area. Additionally, staff has received recommended changes from County DOT, which would revise the action item to the following, quote, work to develop and implement a plan to provide pedestrian improvement in the core downtown area along Schoolway and East Road in the public right-of-way, as funding opportunities allow that will not add a financial burden to the county. Policy 10 is being added to support agro and ecotourism opportunities. Policy 11 is being added to encourage the use of locally native species when landscaping is needed, and to target the removal of invasive species as defined by the California Invasive Plant Council. Policy 12 is being added to encourage the use of dwelling groups or cluster development to balance the need for more housing with the protection of ag land. Policy 13 is being added to note that commercial cannabis cultivation shall prioritize protection of residential uses, and that outdoor cultivation is preferable to indoor mixed light cultivation. Policy 14 is being added to encourage new commercial development to incorporate the use of green and renewable energy sources. Policy 15 is being added to state the county's support of locally owned businesses seeking sources of funding. Policy 16 is being added to state the county's support of job creation through local, non-polluting light industry. And Policy 17 is being added to encourage cooperation between the county and the Redwood Valley community in planning open spaces, parks, and public gardens. Finally, staff has updated the page index at the beginning of Chapter 6 to reflect these changes and standardize language throughout the document, as well as adding an image to the Redwood Valley section. The county's general plan EIR originally analyzed impacts associated with adoption of the general plan, including its associated policies. Staff has determined that the proposed modifications would not result in changes likely to cause significant physical impacts, and so has prepared an addendum to the adopted general plan EIR, consistent with section 15162 of the Public Resources Code. The project was reviewed by the Planning Commission at its December 19th, 2025 meeting, where it recommended approval of the project to the board. Staff recommends that the Board of Supervisors find the project consistent with CEQA and adopt an addendum to the general plan EIR and approve the project as proposed. Staff has also prepared a draft proclamation recognizing the work of the MAC in completing this process. This concludes staff's presentation, and we're available for questions.
And if I may, through the chair, I just have, I received from Supervisor Klein a few comments that she wished that I share with the board as part of this presentation. So if I may, I'll just read that email out loud.
Thank you.
Okay. The Redwood Valley community has worked incredibly hard, spanning 3 different supervisorial representatives to meet this directive of the Redwood Valley Municipal Advisory Council. Redwood Valley is a special place with tenacious individuals and vibrant community, and the Community Action Plan is representative of this spirit. I'm proud of their hard work to make it to this point. Thank you to Planning and Building, to working with the RV MAC to memorialize their work while also presenting balanced community-specific policies appropriate for the county's role. I'm sorry I cannot be there today, but respectfully request the board's support. Thank you, Supervisor Klein.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, and I saw somewhere with the policies that there was a policy about dark skies and promoting that, but I don't see it on this list.
There are other dark sky policies existing within the general plan, so we didn't repeat it in the community-specific section.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. No other questions? We'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the room? Yes, please.
Still morning. Good morning, supervisors and planning and building staff, CEO, county council. My name is Dolly Riley. I'm the chair of the Redwood Valley MAC for the last 5 years. I want to say that the community-specific policies, we are really happy with them. I'm going to hold them up, but you saw a picture of them. Here we go. They're well developed, and they incorporate Redwood Valley interests. But I asked the board to also include the documents, which include the community character and vision of Redwood Valley, and specific wishes, not under the purview of the county, but still very important to Redwood Valley citizens. I'm referring to the Community Action Plan, which is historical, but also has a plan for the future, and the design guidelines, which in the first paragraph includes the community character. Planning and Building Services noted there are some areas of the, I'll call it the CAP, and design guidelines that cannot be implemented and enforced by the board, yet are important to Redwood Valley citizens in future planning. They're important guidelines. Well, the county has no control over enforcement, and the examples are the dark skies and the hoop and greenhouses that are brightly lit after 10 p.m., fire-safe councils, home hardening, siren alerts, which we've accomplished, yay. All of these things cannot be in the community-specific policies because they can't be enforced, so I acknowledge that. So I'm requesting the board to include the Community Action Plan and the design guidelines that we've developed over 8 years as guidance documents in Redwood Valley development, hence the name guidelines. Recently, an informed citizen did approach the board in an email, expressed he had a concern about the design guidelines having an additional layer of review standards. And specifically, he objected to page 4, item D of the design guidelines, which discusses multifamily plan developments, and we asked they avoid what he objected to and what we asked for. We asked they avoid a sterile, monotonous environment, maintain an internal design image, provide maximum open space, enhance landscaping of vehicle corridors, be compatible with existing designed residential development in the area, and include passive solar orientation. These are suggestions. These are guidelines, and include the word support. They reflect the voice of a majority of Redwood Valley citizens who created the guidelines. I'm asking the board to include the CAP and the design guidelines as a guidance document. They include well-thought-out intentions, future wishes that may not be controlled by the county, but should be included as guidance documents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? No. Madam Clerk?
Seeing no further comment online.
Okay. Any more staff comments?
Yes, if I may, through the chair, I'll just note that, and I think we've discussed this with the MAC previously too, that our intention with the community action plan and the design guidelines for how the department will practice those, because we acknowledge the hard work that went into preparing those, is to provide them as available resources that folks can look at when they're conducting development within the community of Redwood Valley, but also acknowledging that they're non-binding, but this is what the Redwood Valley MAC has envisioned for the community. So I believe in that vein, we are considering them as a level of guidance for applications, but it's not in a binding capacity, if that makes sense.
Okay. Any questions for the board before we close the public hearing? Yes, Supervisor Haschak.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to the community of Redwood Valley, because I think this is really taking, taking community action to a new level of trying to create what you want and creating this vision for the community. So I would move the recommended action.
Second.
Yes, sir.
This is Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, through the chair. Just to confirm and clarify for Clerk of the Board and the board, the way the attachments were uploaded are slightly out of order for the resolution. So the resolution is number 11, the general plan amendment is number 12, and the addendum is number 1.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions for the board? Yes, Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you. I also wanted to thank the people in Redwood Valley. I mean, it's been decades of work and innumerable people that have worked on this. So I really appreciate everything that's gone into it. I guess a clarifying question for the director. Will this be posted to our website? Will this be given to applicants, or a little bit of both? What does it mean to provide them?
Sure. I think we will make those publicly available on our website. And then certainly, a lot of times applicants aren't engaging with us until they've submitted a building permit to us. So we figure making it available on our website is probably the best approach for that. And then if there are folks conducting, say, discretionary development as part of our, engaging with them through that discretionary permit process, we can advise them that these guidelines have been, reviewed by the MAC and our desires for what they'd like to see as development within their community.
Thank you.
Okay. I see no further questions. It's 11:30, Madam Clerk. We'll close the public hearing. Bring it back to the board. I believe Supervisor Haschak was the first and Williams was the second. Is that correct? Okay. We'll vote by the button.
The motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we can move on to item R6, which Okay, item R6, discussion and possible action including acceptance of presentation from the Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation, RCHDC, on the Marigold Villas project, and possible direction to staff regarding approximately $300,000 of receipted home program income. And this is the executive office. Yes.
Good morning,
Board of Supervisors, Swen Malala, Executive Division Manager in the Executive Office. This item here is to request direction from your board. With us on the online, we have Angela Ferrero and Ryan LaRue of RCHDC. I will invite them to introduce themselves and present the project in a minute, but just as a background, the RCHDC reached out to the county around October of last year, discussing about their project and asking if the county is aware of any funding sources that could help support their project, the Marigold Villas project. Staff found a funding source called HOME, H-O-M-E. Staff has received about $300,000 or $303,000 to be exact of program income for this this funding. Staff did some preliminary research and did confirm with the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is HCD, that this funding is eligible use for this kind of project. But we would need direction from the board. If you like staff to pursue this further, conduct more research, or let staff know if this is your priority at this time. So I did invite the RCHDC team to present on the project so you have a better understanding of it. And I will turn over to their team. And I do have additional comments afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Board Supervisors. My name is Ryan LaRue. I'm the CEO of Rural Communities Housing Development Corporation. And prior to starting this PowerPoint, I just want to extend our sincere gratitude to staff in working with our organization and trying to, put the last pieces of the puzzle together for this affordable housing community. So thank you so much. They're always wonderful to work with. And so we just have a somewhat brief PowerPoint with just some facts and history of the project. And so I'm happy to just kind of go through that. And next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So what we'll cover today is a brief history of RCHDC, the project, some of the amenities, supportive services, and answer any questions. Next slide, please. And so RCHDC, for those of you who are not familiar, sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. We were established by Ukiah residents in 1975 to address local housing needs, primarily for seniors at the time, low-income seniors. We're a nonprofit public benefit corporation dedicated to the acquisition, development, and management of affordable housing, specifically serving rural Northern California communities. Next slide, please. And some of our experience, we've developed over 700 homes. We're currently managing just over 1,500 homes. And our what we target and our focus is partnering with communities and local agencies to house and serve low and moderate income neighbors. And this picture here is the grand opening of Willow Terrace. A couple years back. Next slide, please. This is an aerial and some photos of a recently completed project in Nice, California, a permanent supportive housing community named after one of our predecessors, Mike Pallison. This is Pallison Place in partnership with Lake County Behavioral Health. And so there's a picture of the key ceremony as well. Next slide, please. And here's another 50-unit project, also a permanent supportive housing community that was just completed up in Wairika, Siskiyou Crossroads. It's a behavioral health community as well. Next slide, please. And here, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with, our or Creek Commons properties, which are adjacent to the subject property we're discussing today. Next slide, please. And so my colleague Angie will briefly review the timeline of our project, how we got here today.
Good morning, everyone. Brief history of Marigold Villas. This is a project that has been in the works for a few years now. Just last year, we were able to secure funding from the Home Investment Partnership Program and the Home ARP American Rescue Plan program through the Housing and Community Development Department. In April of last year as well, we were able to secure funding from the Department of Developmental Services. And with the soft funds, we were able to seek low-income housing tax credits and received an award in September of last year. Due to this award, we are now working towards the construction closing and start of construction, which is scheduled to occur next month, March 2026. Next slide, please. So a brief project overview. The development consists of 32 units, 25 one-bedroom units, and 6 two-bedroom units. We will have an on-site manager's unit as well. Some of the amenities include a community room, laundry room. We have outdoor areas for the residents, and we will be providing on-site services to the tenants as well. We will have 2 service offices available for one-on-one services, as well as a community room for group services. Next slide, please. Here's a brief overlook of the units that we will have and the AMI ranges. We have 16 units that will be for home ARP qualified populations, which includes, as you can see here at the bottom, individuals or families who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, fleeing domestic violence, or at great risk of housing instability. We will also have 8 units for individuals with developmental disabilities and 7 general low-income units, along with our manager's unit. Next slide, please. Some of the services that we will have on the property available to the tenants include a resident services coordinator by our CHGC, and the service coordinator will connect the tenants to various courses or in organizations to provide services such as financial literacy, adult education, health and wellness, art, nutrition, and whatnot. And they will work one-on-one with tenants as needed to provide any pertinent services. Next slide, please. Here's some photos of some of the work that our service coordinator has been able to do with some of our tenants in other properties. Next slide, please. We will also be working with Redwood Community Services. They will be providing services to 16 of the units in the property. And here's a brief overview of some of the services that they provide, which includes case management, counseling and advocacy, mental health care, physical health care, substance use services, employment placement, life skills, and crisis intervention. Next slide, please. We will also be partnering with Redwood Coast Regional Center for services to 8 of the tenants in our community. And similarly, they will be providing services such as attending healthcare appointments, medication management, transportation, household activities, self-care assistance, and managing personal finances. Next slide, please. Brian, we're back to you.
Yep. And so one of why we're here today so close to our deadline for breaking ground, the allocation of tax credits imposes a break ground deadline that we're having to meet. That's why Angie mentioned the March groundbreaking. But what has transpired is that the tax credit pricing has gone down significantly this past year. The market changes reduced investor demand for tax credits, and as a result, the pricing declined based on what we had budgeted. So we were left with roughly $1 million funding gap after, what would typically be where we procure all the sources of funds necessary to construct and own and manage. And so as, the sponsor for this project, we've been working diligently to try to secure the remaining funds necessary to bring this project to fruition. And that's why we come before the board today to discuss the project and the financial situation in hopes that the county would be willing to support this project to get it over the finish line. Next slide, please. So as Angie mentioned, we successfully secured the tax credit funding. However, the tax credits generated, less revenue than we had anticipated. All other funding sources remain committed, and the project is ready to move forward. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, here we are today. Obviously, we've submitted a building permit application, and construction start in March. And with the anticipated schedule of construction would lead us to a fall lease up of 2027. Next slide, please. And so I'm happy to answer, those were just kind of high level facts about the project. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Williams?
Just clarifying question. It seems like a good project. The agenda summary has no cost to the county, but I see in the summary of request, quote, however, HCD staff is advising the county to consider whether it will be worth the time and expense to submit a home program application. I'm wondering how much expense are we talking about?
Okay. I got the okay from the chair to answer. Soy Malala, Executive Office. Apologies, we didn't have it with the time of the agenda publication. Staff has been working with the HCD. So we only did, a very preliminary research, not investing a lot of time and effort, waiting for, board direction to make sure this is where the board wants us to go. But since we do have the program income already in-house, it will be very similar to how CDBG works with program income. The county would have to submit an application. We don't have any concern with whether the application will be approved. Since it is program income, it is non-competitive. If this is the direction that the board chooses to go, RCHDC would be written in as a sub-recipient, so HCD wouldn't require a competitive process for that. We haven't applied for a home application. Working with our consultant CDS based in Kelseyville, they're estimating about $10,000 to put together this application. And for our current home loans, we're having to do about 2 reports a year, and the maximum administrative cost allowed is about 10%. So I will also need direction from the board if that would be reserved for staff time or allocated for RCHDCs. And I also want to clarify that comment. When we did reach out to HCD in the world of home loans, for HCD staff, $300,000 is very little. And similarly to CDBG, the application is comprehensive and it's long, and they are advising the county whether it is worth our time and the developers' time to work on an application for such a small amount of money. They may be working with other jurisdictions, not small like us. For us, that's a lot of money.
And second question, is the county incurring any liability if some reason the project doesn't finish, or is there any outcome where the county will be financially liable?
If I may, through the chair, I think there's some additional clarification I think we would need to seek. By putting up these funds, we believe the project may also require like prevailing wage tracking and a lot of stuff that may involve our facilities department, which we have not been able to cost out yet.
Yeah.
So there, we do believe there's additional expenses.
I think there may be. And so what I don't know where my colleague said on this, I'm in favor of it. The county's broke, so we can't be paying costs and we can't be liable if something goes wrong. The recommended action seems to jump straight to allocating the $300,000, but I also hear staff needs to do some additional research. Is there an updated recommended action that would get this started, but would give an opportunity for staff to make sure we're safe?
If I could clarify through the chair, the recommended action is accept the presentation and provide staff direction.
Well, let me read it. It's accept the presentation, ... and provide direction to staff to allocate approximately $300,000. And that's the part I'm hearing we may need a little bit more research before we are ready to say yes to allocate.
If I may, through the chair, we do believe there's additional research that needs to be done regarding these funds in general. Prior to the last, I'm not sure entirely when the county started taking over these funds. Previously, it was a third party that was helping manage them. And so we have minimal experience with them. So we would need additional time to know what the true impacts are.
So given that, do you want to revise the recommended motion? I want to move it, but I'm not hearing that the executive office is quite ready for what's recommended here. How you want to read it over and make sure you're content?
If I may, through the chair, we also would like to get the board's understanding and direction on if there's other projects that would be they would be interested in. Is this the highest and best use? We need to do additional. I do believe we need to do additional research.
Do you support the recommended action as is?
If I may, through the chair, we do need additional time to search through what these funds could.
So that's a no.
Really be used for, correct?
Supervisor Mulhern.
Thank you, Chair. This project is located in the 2nd District, and you may not have been able to tell from the presentation or the maps that were provided. It's located adjacent to Oar Creek Commons. I have mentioned Oar Creek Commons a dozen times in 5 years as a project in my district that heavily uses county resources, including the Mendocino County Sheriff's Office. I understand that this project has been contemplated since 2004, and it's an important project because we need more housing of all types in our community. I was surprised to see this agenda item on Thursday and reached out to both the executive office staff and Mr. LaRue and RCHDC for clarification on several points, including the questions, Supervisor Williams, that you had similar to the questions about HCD and the comments that were made in the agenda item. I do know that other jurisdictions near us use similar funds, maybe not these exact funds, in different ways, and so I would encourage the board to hold off until we have seen what those options are. I appreciate the clarification about possibly $10,000 of an outside contractor to be able to submit the application. And I was not able to connect with Mr. LaRue. I know he did email me back, and I do still have more questions around this project and what the coordination with the community partners looks like. I had direct questions about the budget for the project that I can ask now, or we can wait until I can have a private conversation with Mr. LaRue. And I did ask the sheriff for to look into the data and the statistics around how much time the sheriff's office is spending in this area. The two projects that currently exist have a similar makeup of tenants. And so I would expect that with the lease up of this property, we may continue to have an impact to the county's general fund. So I don't know if the sheriff wanted to make any comments on that, and I just would ask that my colleagues respect that this is in my district, and I still would like to get more information from staff and the developer and have it come forward at a future agenda item.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Mendocino County Sheriff Matt Kendall. My staff has been working with Supervisor Mulherin for the last couple of years on a lot of the stats and the things that are going on at the Oar Creek Commons. In 2025, we had 397 calls for service on Brush Street there. 361 of those calls for service came from the Oar Creek Commons, and these calls for service include, however, we're not limited to violence, domestic violence, narcotics issues, homeless issues, grand theft auto, grand theft, assaults. Basically, this very small concentrated area is taking up 100% of the time of one deputy sheriff every single day when I'm trying to run the entire inner portion, or the central portion of Mendocino County, from the county line all the way up to Howard Forest Cal Fire Station, with 2 deputies and 1 sergeant on a daily basis. And so people in Redwood Valley are suffering from a lack of services from us because we are spending a lot of time down there. And a lot of these calls for service, they are not a 15-minute call for service. They require 10 to 20 hours worth of follow-up and investigation just on Joe average stolen property. A lot of the assaults and things that have occurred down there, to be honest with you, unless we're going to get ourselves a couple of deputy sheriffs out of this, I don't know how we're going to continue if this problem continues to grow. And I understand we've got to have affordable housing. I realize that, and I think that we should. But at the same time, what is the cost of the general fund? And if we're going to be supporting this, how do we clean up the problems that we previously have before we increase it? So, and I'm sorry, I don't remember what the current number of apartments is in the Oar Creek Commons now, but I have to think that this is going to bump that number up for us in calls for service as well. I don't know what the percentage of increase is. Does anybody have that number?
I think that maybe the team from RCHDC could answer it, but it's close to 80 currently, and I think this is another
32?
24, 32. So maybe about.
So it's roughly a 35% increase, and that's just doing quick math in my head. But are we going to see a 35% increase in calls for service when we already are not able to handle all those calls for service in the fashion that I believe that we should? And then in the meantime, the deputies who are working these other areas are being pulled off constantly to deal with the calls for service there. And so we absolutely have to have affordable housing, but at the same time, at what cost? And so those are my concerns on these. And as we look to move forward, I would hope that that some changes can be put into place prior to, so that it is not such a burden on our services and taking away from the folks who have been paying their taxes for 20 years and not getting the services that they need in the moment. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Haschak?
Yeah, it seems like this project, I mean, people have to live somewhere, and it's responding to calls either underneath the bridge or in a housing unit. So I'd like to, flesh that out a little bit more, because it just seems like we have to house people, and the crime, whether it's concentrated in one area or not, it's we still respond to those people throughout the county. My questions about this project is, it says it's $1 million short of funding, and they're asking for $300,000. So how's that delta going to be dealt with? And then the other projects, are there other projects? We haven't seen anything else presented that we could use this program income for. And so what are those projects, and is there a better use for the money somewhere else? Is this all the money we have in that program income fund? And then lastly, for a question for RCHDC, You know, I thought there was a project going on in Willits, in the south end of Willits, and just wanting the status, even the update of that project, if possible.
If I may, through the chair. Okay. So again, staff has just inherited this program income. It's very, very new to staff. We only did a preliminary research because our CHDC reached out. But through our preliminary research, you could also use it for rental new construction projects or rental rehabilitation projects or like a first-time home buyers program. And we are still, just for your background, so the $300,000 is what we've been able to receive it so far. That was collected from 2019 to 2023. The next payment wouldn't be due until 2029, and that's about $47,000. So these loans were issued decades ago, and they're 30-year loans, and they're coming in over time. So we're accumulating over time. And because you know, we just inherited, we have not had a thorough look into what could it be used for.
Yeah, so we don't have any other pending projects out there to fund.
No.
Supervisor Williams.
When I read the agenda, I didn't grasp it. The district supervisor may not be in favor, and my vote is contingent on that. So everything else aside, I need to hear that District 2 wants the project. Sounds like the logical step is for supervisor to work with staff and come back with proposal if it's appropriate.
Thank you, Supervisor Williams. I would appreciate that. I had questions. Again, I was unaware that this was coming forward, and I had questions that I don't think have been answered yet, and I'd like to bring back more information to the board so that you all can understand what Supervisor Hashak mentioned, what else could the funds be used for, and then again, I had questions for the developer, especially around the partnerships and a little bit of the budgeting and how the staffing was going to move forward. And so I would appreciate the opportunity to be able to answer those questions before the board approves or not.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I feel the same way. I think asking for this to come back with other options of what the money could be used for, perhaps exploring and getting answers to all the questions Supervisor Mulhern has would be appropriate. I think today is not the day based on the information and the number of questions we have to approve this. But I think we should go to the public and hear from them, and then we can bring it back to the board. Anybody in the room like to speak on this item? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no further comment online.
Okay. So back to the board. We can certainly entertain a motion, or Supervisor Mulhern, if you would like to perhaps introduce some direction for staff.
Well, I think for my colleagues, I would like to have the opportunity to work with staff to have the questions answered and to bring it back at a future agenda as quickly as possible. I understand that our CHDC is about to begin construction, and so I know that they want to know what's going to happen, and I don't want to delay that. I just have not been able to have my questions answered.
Okay. I certainly support that. Supervisor Williams?
Chair, what's your preference on how it comes back? You could table it. We could just not take action today.
I think no action today and just direction, and then have staff bring it back after Supervisor Mulhern's complacent in getting all of her questions answered. Supervisor Mulhern, are you comfortable with that? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Ms. Pierce, you're good?
Yes.
Okay. Any other supervisor have a comment or question? No? Okay. So it is 12 o'clock, and we will close the open portion of the meeting and go into closed.
If I may,
yes.
through the chair, do you want to take the supervisor report, the last items are supervisor reports in executive office, the CEO report before going into closed?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so CEO's report?
So the CEO report, we're just submitting as written, no additional information.
Okay. And we have nothing under R9, correct?
Correct.
Is that the ledge item? I just would like to add that the 20th, February 20th was the last day to enter bills. And there was a lot entered. There's over 1,800 bills entered at the state legislation. So it will be a very active year for legislation. So just a brief update. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's going to bring us to supervisor reports. Supervisor Haschak.
Through the chair, if I may, for clarification, possibly through county council, do we need to take public comment on R8 and R9 since there was discussion?
Yes, I mean, it's still a matter before the board, so yes, you should
Okay,
take public
thank you.
comment.
My apologies.
Even if the board
We'll
intends not to
open
take
up
an action.
R8 for public comment. Anybody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no comment online.
Okay, and R9 on the ledge platform. Anybody in the room? Madam Clerk?
Seeing no further comment online.
Okay. So that now we'll move to R10, Supervisor Haschak.
Yeah, I attended a Sonoma Clean Power meeting. Sonoma Clean Power is proposing the development of a local solar and battery storage facility south of Ukiah to provide clean, reliable energy for Mendocino and Sonoma counties. The 8-acre project hopes to repurpose an EPA Superfund site, former industrial wood treatment facility, kind of across the highway from the Ukiah Valley Health Club. After 30 years of soil and groundwater remediation, the site has been approved for use, but it cannot be used for homes, schools, hospitals, or any habitable purpose. Sonoma Clean Power is excited by the opportunity to transform the previously unusable property into a source of local clean power for the community. If successful, this will be Sonoma Clean Power's first fully owned and operated local energy source. And in support of this greater mission, this project will help increase the amount of locally produced renewable energy, reduce our region's reliance on natural gas power plants, and create long-lasting community benefits around resiliency and energy costs. So that's very exciting. We had a great Redwood Trail meeting on last week, and we are looking at an attachment to the draft master plan, and it's for the environmental protection and compliance review. Very interesting discussion about that, and the draft master plan will be coming back to the board on March 19th. There was also discussion about the use of herbicides on the trail and what our policy should be. So if anyone's interested in that, March 19th would be a time when I think it will be coming back to the board for discussion and further direction. So that Sarah had a retreat last week, and people were driving in from all over the place, and it was the snowiest day of the year, and it was in Willits, so at the museum in the Wanacott room. So it was very people had an experience driving over the ridge and everything. We talked about the strategies and outcomes of the portfolio, and so it was very useful day to look at all aspects of the portfolio. And then First Five, we had a meeting yesterday, very useful, doing great work there. And I had a question about the noise ordinance, because it was proposed in 2024 by Supervisor McGordy before he left, and then it's kind of been out there, and it hasn't come back to the board. So I was just wondering if we're going to ever get a report or anything about where we are with that noise ordinance, because the board said go ahead and let's create it. So just wondering if we should wrap that up in some way.
Okay, thank you. Anybody like to go next? Supervisor Mulhern?
Thank you. I won't repeat Supervisor Hashak's report on the Great Redwood Trail, but I also attended that meeting. I met with the Mendocino Fire Safe Council to better understand their upcoming year and what their goals are, and they allow me to participate in a project discussion with Xylo Plan, which looks at fire and weather patterns to determine the highest and best use of funds for home hardening. Essentially, it builds plans for communities to disrupt fire pathways to the best benefit of the community. So they're looking into what that could look like. And I attended the EDFC meeting. They discussed their current loans and received a presentation from a business owner in Lake County about the opportunities that they've had to create businesses through EDFC. Supervisor Klein had included the PowerPoint presentations from the Inland Water Power Commission. I also attended that meeting, and it was very well attended by the public, so well attended that I'd like to thank staff for their quick action in helping us move rooms. And I think it was a really important conversation, regardless of what happens with the FERC decommissioning project or process of the Potter Valley project. We know that Potter Valley needs additional storage, and we know that there needs to be some type of expansion at Lake Mendocino. So it's important that the County of Mendocino continues to be engaged in those conversations and that our residents in all of the areas are watching those conversations. It's critical to our water future. Yesterday, I attended the opening of the Anchor Health Rehabilitation Center. This is the medication management and whole person care facility. They have added a new facility, which is going to include 16 beds for those with mental health needs and co-occurring substance disorders. They'll have the opportunity to live here while gaining life skills and hopefully be able to reincorporate into the public. I think having this all in one location will benefit continuity of services for people that have mental health issues. This project is located in the city of Ukiah on Orchard Avenue. So there's quite a substantial amount of projects that are located within the 2nd District related to behavioral health. And I think it's important that all supervisors are engaging in those conversations. With that being said, on Wednesday, tomorrow, there is a Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting and also a Measure B meeting. Both of those meetings will take place in Redwood Valley, and you can find the agenda and packets online under the Behavioral Health tab on the county website. Also, I have been hosting virtual meetings called A Seat at the Table so that people can come and discuss current topics, whether that's homelessness, water, housing, whatever they'd like to discuss. That's available, and the next one will be March 26th. The board approved on its consent calendar several proclamations, including one for the Women's History Gala. The flyer for that event was included. It will take place on March 1st at the Space Theater, and I just encourage the public and board members to attend that important meeting. I think that with the current conversations around supporting women and girls, it's even more important that we attend local events like the Women's History Gala. Thank you.
Supervisor Williams.
I attended the Prop 47 meeting with Supervisor Norvell, and Prop 47 has the city of Fort Bragg doing work in my district, and I would say good work. They've had some success stories. I think it would be appropriate for the county to invite them to give us all an update at the right time. My broadband assignments, nothing is happening with broadband in our county because we're not getting any of the money. My offshore oil with coastal counties assignment, we've been met again, nothing to report. The Wallala Streetscape project that was appealed to the Board of Supervisors and then appealed to Coastal Commission is moving forward. Coastal Commission has said it should continue. The Caltrans Streetscape project in Boonville looks like it's being delayed a couple of years due to funding. Supervisor Klein and I met with the Fire Districts Association, and I can't insist anybody do anything. I have no authority, but I strongly encourage that the fire districts write a written plan rather than just asking for more money, because the county doesn't really have money, and if we have a written plan in front of us, maybe we can find opportunities for partnership elsewhere. And they're actively working. I'm meeting with their representative, Emily Tecchio, regularly. And then last, our Assembly member introduced AB 2494 to modernize operations in the demonstration for us. I think that might be a large economic opportunity for Mendocino County, seeing other places like Bend, Oregon that have had an influx in dollars into the local economy, not just in the peak of summer, but off-season as well. And I'm appreciative that we got the support into our ledge platform this year.
Thank you. For me, I attended the Grassroots Institute meeting 2 weeks ago. I did miss yesterday's. As mentioned, I attended the Prop 47 meeting with Supervisor Williams. I am working to have them give the board a short update, hopefully next month. There's a meeting between the Westport Society and our waste hauler around Grieve Waste pickup scheduled for next month on the 22nd. As I mentioned earlier, last meeting, I will be attending this weekend the Northern Circle Indian Housing Authority's year-end meeting in Norville. I was invited by the Fort Bragg Police Department to attend a tabletop exercise around a school shooting. Fort Bragg PD was there, Sheriff Office, Fish and Wildlife, Coast Guard, School District, Adventist Health, Fort Bragg Fire Department. We're all in attendance. They worked through the scenario. It was quite interesting. If any of you ever get invited, I recommend you accept. Over the weekend, I was interviewed by some Cal Poly College students for a documentary they are doing on the old mill site in Fort Bragg. And then just again, lastly, McCavan House is still collecting needles. If you find needles, please call McCavan House 707-462-1932 or call Joe Ditto directly 707-727-0402. Supervisor Williams.
I'm not starting a discussion, but the public may be curious how many people have called so far. I'm curious.
I don't know. We could ask. All right. So any public comment on the supervisor reports? None in the room, Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it's 12:13. We will close the open portion and convene into closed in 15 minutes. Yes, thank you. Okay, so closed session, we have items CS1, CS2, CS3. Any public comment in the room on the closed session items? None, Madam Clerk?
Seeing none online.
All right, so we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you, Mo.
Thank you. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient for 72 hours. Find a list of supplies for disaster kits on our website, mendoready.org.
A prepared community is a resilient community that will recover faster from disasters. So take some time today, visit our website, get yourself prepared so you can be Mendo ready.
in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
Not every emergency requires people to evacuate. An emergency kit will have supplies for you to remain self-sufficient.
Reopen the open portion of the meeting for report out from closed. County Council?
Yes, so pursuant to closed session, CS1 and CS2 on the agenda, direction was given to staff. Regarding CS3 on the agenda, information was provided to the board.
Okay, thank you. It is 1:34 and we will adjourn.
How was I at it?